You are now listening to the Minority Trailblazer podcast. Let the story begin.
One time for the lovers, two times for the ladies, three times for the brothers, four times for the babies. Do you love her? 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 One time for the lovers, two times for the ladies, three times for the brothers, four times for the babies. Do you love her? 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 Brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. Brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. She my brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. She my brown skin, love her brown skin. Hold me down.
Welcome to the Minority Trailblazer podcast, and I'm your host, Greg, the Culture Change Agent. On this show, we interview young, successful minorities in a variety of fields to educate, empower, and inspire our current and future generation of leaders. Today's show is going to be a classic. It is long. It is 2 hours long. So you know, last week was hour 50. We done passed the 2 hour threshold, but I guarantee those that listen through to the end, you got nuggets on nuggets, realness on realness, conversations that we are not having in this space, specifically around women's rights, specifically around Black women's rights. So definitely stay tuned. For my men out there, we talking about some real stuff too, because I'm on the show as well. And I'm just excited to showcase this woman. She's a podcaster, event planner, sociologist. I mean, she just is very, very well-rounded and unique. So this flavor of the show is definitely real. I know last week's show was phenomenal. Like one of my best shows ever. This show is right up there with it. So I can't wait to share her story, her journey. And definitely for my people, my entrepreneurs out there, my change agents, my people of marketing and branding, this is the show for you. My people that want somebody to come with that realness. I'm talking about from a single mother perspective, from a woman. Usually we hear the narrative from a man, so we get to hear her story. And this is just a refreshing interview to have. First and foremost, thank you so much for every single person that is registered at minoritytrailblazer.com to get more information about the conference. In one day, we have been able to have over 100 people sign up for more information. I'm just flabbergasted. I'm mind-boggled for that amount. And I guarantee, I promise you, we are going to put up an event that's going to go down in history. I'm putting way too much swag on it. What it is what it is. Also, thank you, LinkedIn, Twitter, IG, fam, for your comments, your messages, your feedback. Thank you so much. Please continue to leave such. And for my IG fam, Minority Trailblazer podcast will be way more active on IG. I know I have not been doing the best job keeping that updated. I think we're like episode 26 on there. So I'm going to make sure I update it. And I will definitely, in season 4, we will have a lot more Q&A to get your questions that you want to ask to some of our expert guests or my up-and-coming guests. So make sure, be on the lookout for that. So let's get into it. Oh! Make sure you leave a review too. If you listening via iTunes right now, and you've listened to more than one episode, make sure you leave your review. Leave a review, please. I'm begging. We need to get to like 200. We at 157 right now. So leave a review and make sure you do that. All right, let's get into the show.
And I am excited. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overjoyed. I had this conversation with our guest on the show before the show yesterday, and her energy, her transparency in our 15-minute conversation, like we was giving away stuff. I was like, yo, hold this for the podcast. So I know she's going to drop a lot of gems. I feel it in my heart. This is going to be a classic episode. And last week was a classic, and I think we just going to top last week's episode. And for those of you that have been following the podcast, you know I typically do not record in the evenings because I go to bed at 9:30, but it's 9:30 right now. But we still going to do a phenomenal show. I'm gonna talk like it's usually in my comfort zone, like getting the 4 a.m., 5 a.m. time. I'm gonna bring that type of energy. So, yes. And today's also going to be different as well, is because what she does on an everyday basis is really plays into like the theme and the season I'm in. And the one word I think about is community, because I think community is key, growing, developing, and spreading conversations that matter with purpose. And in order for those communities to grow in a space, a lot of times that's usually events. And world-class events allow experts and their participants to both grow and learn together. Bad events waste people's money, time, and influence. So today we have on the show a young woman in the event planning space that is dominated, honestly, by, I'm not even getting that, I'm gonna let her say it. So it's dominated by a lot of people that don't look like her, that is not female. So, and she's gonna bring to us her real journey, her business, and her event planning expertise. So for my entrepreneurs, for my women trailblazers, for everybody that's on the East Coast grinding, trying to do their thing, this is the show for you. Let me lead a little bit of a bio, and then we're going to jump right into it. So she is the owner and founder of Rielle Events, LLC. She earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from highly ranked Wellesley College, majoring in international relations and sociology. Chinese was her choice for a second language. I don't know. I took a Chinese class in college and almost failed that thing. I don't know why that's her second choice. We can get into that. Simultaneously, she began her career at corporate events. Known for her innate passion for social causes, program management, and using innovative approaches to event planning, she has had the pleasure of working with major foundations like the Kellogg Foundation and the Detroit Chinese Business Association and the United Way. She thrives on creating high business returns for her clients, and she has raised $250,000 through an outdoor fundraising event for Child Development Association in Roswell, Georgia. And that's just a snippet of what she has done, not only for herself, not only for her community, but for a corporation that book her to do events. And I'm excited to bring her on the podcast. I know she's going to come with a new edge. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce Gabrielle Jones to the Minority Trailblazer podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. You have great energy, and I know this is going to be an awesome podcast interview. So thank you.
You already know. So if you've been listening to the show, 60 plus episodes in the bag, couple 100,000 downloads all across the country. You know that winning. You know we winning. But it's all because of you, first and foremost, the listeners. But you always know we start off with a quote. So, Miss Jones, can I call you Miss Jones?
Yes. Or Rielle. Rielle is great.
Rielle. Yeah, Rielle sounds, Miss Jones is kind of like, it's good, but Rielle give me that spice to it. So Rielle.
Thank you.
So, Rielle, can you give us a quote that you live by and a story about how you apply that quote to your everyday life?
Yeah, so I've actually been thinking about this question a lot because typically I don't really live by quotes, but one quote that has stuck with me throughout my life has been, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. And I think that for me, I've overcome and I've weathered a lot of storms that I never saw in my future. I think that's something we'll talk about a little later in the podcast, but growing up, I was really sheltered, and going especially through college into my early adult life, I really had to lean heavier on God and kind of really delve into my spirituality and my faith and what it looks like to me, and also kind of challenge it in a way. And so I think that the quote is not as easily said for me as it was when I was a child, and I could just, I could do all things, and I take that just for a test. But now it's like the challenges are even bigger, right? And they're even more real. And it's like, can I do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. So I think that's the quote that I would choose to continue to be with me with my journey.
Yeah, and I was going to ask for the story, impress you for the story, but that's a perfect segue into kind of who you are. But I did want to park right there for 1 second, because I love what you said as far as challenge. Because in your head and in my head, there's so many quotes that for people that do attend church and to prescribe to the religion of Christianity that we say all the time, like, okay, God is good all the time. I'm highly favored and all this other things.
Right.
But as you, if you are taking, and this is my opinion, I'm not a preacher, but if you are taking like steps in your spiritual life, those quotes you need to challenge those quotes. You need to say, okay, why do I believe that though? Like,
Right,
it's
right.
easy to say in the moment, like somebody going through something, yo, God got you, man. God got, but
Right,
like, what does that
right.
mean? And then that's when
This is
people,
not my battle, it's yours. Wait, what? But
like,
I'm here right now.
yeah, like, that ain't helping me. Like, the preacher last week, he talked about, he said, yo, I'm spending all this time blessing people. Well, when my blessing gonna come? Like,
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
a lot of people jump off and get unenamored with religion and stuff like that in God, because when you come from that mindset, like, yo, I'm blessing everybody, when my blessing gonna come. I mean, and for all y'all that not religion, don't worry, we're not gonna stay here that long, but
No, but I think it's important, and I think that everybody has some sense of spirituality, even if it's not vocalized in a specific religion. You have some sense of, I'm supposed to do something, you know, and I want to find what that is, and I want to live up to something bigger than being a jerk to everybody. There's something in you that and wants to also be known for being good, you know, like even the person who struggled with the most vices, they in their deepest heart is going to say, I'm a good person, because that's something that they're looking for. And when we talk about religion, I think sometimes we get so focused on the people, you know, versus the spiritual journey, and that we're all trying to answer this same questions, right? And I think, like, going back to the conversation we had yesterday about burning bridges, and, you know, no bridge can be burnt too badly that you can't rebuild it with effort. But I also feel like with my journey, one of the things that I struggled with was kind of the dealing with things that happened to me that weren't my fault. And, like, I grew up very much heavily Christian, non-denomination, but really prescribing to that good girl idea. And I think probably a lot of your female listeners would really understand what that means, especially I know, like, I have a lot of Muslim girlfriends, and their idea of the good girls is very much the same as what mine was as a Christian. And
if you could real quick, what is a good girl? Like, I mean, because for the main listeners that don't know,
yeah. So, like, you know, you want to wait till marriage. Marriage is like the pinnacle of your womanhood. Is when, hopefully, after graduating from college or around college time, you meet someone who is equally, quote unquote, yoked or similar to you and aspirations or where they want to go. And as a woman, a lot of times the idea is that you'll not only find this husband, but then you'll be able to really start your life as a woman and be able to think about having children and instilling those things to them. And also, like, through this, you don't want your reputation to ever be scarred before you meet Mr. Right, whoever that is. And you don't want him to ever hear something bad about you. So, like, the idea of being a good girl really weighs heavy on every action that you do. And also, like, every action that you do, not just for you, but with this person that you've never met before, you know, like, which is, like, it's a lot of weight, especially when you're trying to find yourself. And I think that, like, even a lot of the religious guys that I know, their ideas of being good in their faith was not as heavy as the girls, you know. And so you have a little bit more freedom, a little bit like boys will be boys. He's trying, you know, whatever. But yeah, so I think that especially when you get to college or certain things happen to you, you start challenging, like, you know, I did all these things that are supposed to be right, and why did this happen to me? And, you know, why don't I have as much support or whatever it is? And I think that if you were religious growing up and you did subscribe to this idea of good girl, it can make you start questioning, like, not God, why? Well, maybe God, why? And also, God, where are you in this? You know, because I've been believing so much. I've been sacrificing a lot of who I am.
Yeah, and you see other people, they getting it in and they winning.
Yeah,
they win.
And they seem like they're winning. You see them on Instagram. You see them in Atlanta. We like to be very flashy, so you see them at the clubs and they look good. They got, you know, good looking people around them, and you're like, whoa, I'm struggling here. Things aren't as easy, and you know, so. Yeah, I don't know how we got down that road, but
it got down because, I mean, I was in a Bible class one time, and trust me, listeners, we going somewhere. But I was in a Bible class one time, and somebody was like, "Yo, like, challenge why you believe in," and that's scary for me as a believer. I'm like, challenging why I believe it, because that makes me accountable to know kind of why I do have scripture-based thing and kind of have a solid belief. Because it's easy to say, oh
Right.
yeah, I believe this, and there's somebody that's from a different path, or just somebody just ask questions of why you believe that. And if you were just saying, well, shoot, God, like, what is that? So I just
Like, why does God have to be male? And like for a long time, I thought people were like, you're just gaslighting, this or whatever. And you're like, well, earlier texts really refer to God as a black female and stuff, like, not to get crazy on, into this or whatever. But like the idea, like, can you challenge your idea of God, and where did you get your original thought of God? And what are you kind of mirroring that? And for me, early on in my adult life, and even like starting to leave high school, those questions were very like triggering, like, you're just baiting me, like versus like, wait, why do I like, and I think that takes maturity in your spiritual journey to be able to really reflect and challenge some of those things. And then maybe at the end you do say, no, I really do believe it is a male, and I really do believe he looks this way, or he acts this way, or whatever.
Yeah, and I think for those of you listening, to kind of make that tie-in and kind of segue into what we're doing, I think it's really important that we ask those critical questions in our own career and our own path. Not if you're a teacher, if you're an entrepreneur, if you are a change agent, if you are a DJ, whoever you're listening to, asking those critical questions like why am I doing this?
Right.
Like the little things.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. And then one last thing, if you have high school listeners, I participated in this Emory program, Youth Theological Institute, and it's a summer program, I think, for like juniors. And basically, they bring in students from all over, and you talk about religion, you talk about environmental racism, and as a Christian, Muslim, someone who may not believe in anything yet, or you're struggling with your faith, or whatever it is, you're looking at these different social issues and also different texts across religions. And I think that was so eye-opening for me as a student and everybody who was in a program. And I think that if you're just curious, you don't have to be like, oh, I want to be a theologian one day. Mm-hmm. You can just apply, and they have really great scholarship and stuff.
Amen.
So just a plug, because that's half of what I do.
You got me saying amen on this thing. Good God. We done went left. But I know from my audience is listening in like, hold up. She sound deep to be an event planner. Like, keep your seats on.
Yeah.
Keep your seats on. It is like, you can tell. And I did want to, and it's going in, and after I do this little rant, you can go right on to kind of who you are and set the text of this show. But it does, when you're listening to her in this discussion, before we even get into it, segues into the point of like the college, because I ain't gonna lie, it said highly ranked Wellesley College. I've never heard of Wellesley College. Like when she reached out on LinkedIn, like she didn't come off pretentious, but she's like, yeah, so don't be looking at me sideways, Rielle. But you was like, yeah, I have that experience attending an Ivy League school, and I said, Wellesley College? What Ivy League is that? Like, what? Who's that? So, please, in your story, talk to like what Wellesley College, and maybe some alumni, kind of paint that picture. But for my audience that are new to who you are and what you do, you don't even gotta get to what you do point. We'll get to that. But who you are and where you're from, please share us with the audience.
Well, first thing, I am from Decatur, where it's greater, in Atlanta, near Atlanta, Georgia. I am very proud of being from Decatur. If you can't hear it in my voice, I think that it's just a phenomenal place that is going to have its own comeback soon, which I'm excited for. But I grew up in a tutoring service. So my mom, she went to MIT, and then she did the corporate America thing for a while, and then realized it really wasn't for her. And she started a tutoring service, Wings of Knowledge, in Decatur, Georgia, so that she could help predominantly Black students really achieve whatever academic goals that they had, and also dream bigger than probably what was set on them before. And routinely I saw, especially young men, come in with the idea that like, Black people aren't good at math, or I can't do this, or I've struggled this long in this subject and I'm never going to be good at it. And within weeks, their whole demeanor changed, and their whole like view on the topic or the subject matter completely changed, and they're going to the class and they're running to the board to teach everybody how to do the next lesson plan and or the next topic. And that really motivated me in understanding that educating people and giving people the opportunity to learn at their pace and provide different ways of teaching stuff can really change someone's perspective on life and what they go to try to achieve. Mm-hmm. Fast forwarding, I went to Wellesley College, which is a women's college. We're the number 3 college in America, number 1 women's college. We're known for really great women like Hillary Clinton, Diane Sawyer, Madeleine Albright.
Oh, wow.
We had like the last Empress of China was a student, a lot of princesses and stuff like that.
Empresses of China, princesses. I'm like, am I listening to a Disney movie?
Yeah, Thailand, and all that kind of stuff. And the school was really originally formed so that the elite women could get their training on mostly how to be a great wife and a woman of the time, and then they could marry predominantly Harvard men. So like how you have Spelman, you have Spellhouse, Spelman, and Morehouse. Mm-hmm. Wellesley was like with Harvard. And that was around the time where you had Radcliffe and all these women colleges, and Wellesley was like the most pristine one, kind of. I didn't know about Wellesley growing up. I was always very intellectually curious.
Did you grow up with your father too? And did you have siblings?
No, just I was only child. I grew up with my mom. I come from a line of only children, so very small family. But I had the idea that I was going to be a diplomat. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I had a couple teachers who really supported that.
What is a diplomat too? Because I know.
Yeah, like a foreign service officer. So basically, it's a person that lives in another country, and you advise like the U.S. on how we should trade or interact with the home country you're staying in for at least 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so you advise them on like immigration policies or cultural things or, war strategies, things that you think will really help in the U.S. relations or whatever country you're representing. And so for me, I wanted to represent America in China and be the U.S. diplomat for China and kind of tell the U.S. government, this is what we should do, this is the tactics we should kind of come up with, and also represent American interests in China and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so 2 of the female secretaries of state actually went to Wellesley, which was like, okay, 2 out of 3, that's good, because obviously it's very rare for women to hold that position. Mm-hmm. And so I had a teacher who really pushed me towards Wellesley. I originally wanted to go to Carnegie Mellon. They have men there, and that was really plus.
Oh man, they have men there.
That was like A1 because I never thought I was gonna go to a women's college, or whatever. And she was like, if you go to this school, when you graduate, you'll be in a part of like a really elite world. And at that point, I didn't get it. It's like, okay, whatever. I just thought you work hard, you get the job. I didn't really know anything about networking mm-hmm. and, there being kind of levels and stuff like that. And so at Wellesley, I ended up studying international relations and sociology, and Chinese was my language. And I started working with a lot of nonprofits because I realized if I was going to be a diplomat, I needed to know more about what was happening in the world, like the world's issues, not just like main topics, but what were the people dealing with and how did you solve those problems? And I thought that nonprofits were the people that defined the problems and they created solutions, and mm-hmm. I should work with them. And every role that I had working with different nonprofits, they kept pulling me to organize their programs, restructure it, create syllabi, create timelines, deal with their donors, and also do marketing things. What I realized, though, these were all skills that I learned growing up in my mother's tutoring service. Mm-hmm. And I had an eye for marketing because I did a lot of our flyers, I did a lot of our signs, and because she came up with a corporate background, she cared a lot about tracking data and like, which sign did you see? Oh, they saw the pink one. Gabby, that was yours. Or, what flyer are you responding to? Mm-hmm. And things like that. And also managing African American students of different ages in the summertime to only focus on education.
I don't, man. I gotta.
know?
It's hard to get them to do it in the school year. So
Right. So you have to like really be good at understanding how long their attention span is going to be for this. How do you get it creative? How do you engage them? And when you can do that, when you can really do that for that community, it gets easier applying those skills for other communities. And it's something else that I said really helped me, especially with donors of whatever level, whether they're giving tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, was working in my mother's tutoring service where you have like, again, African American mothers who might come in and their child grade did not come up. They're like, whoa, what's going on? They're on you. And you have to be able to understand where they're coming from, empathize, be able to articulate why they might not have seen a change. Oh, Johnny didn't turn in the homework that we did, and all those homeworks were zeros. But also understand that a lot of times they aren't heard and where they're coming from, so that when you respond back, they are heard this time. And so in the future, they're your biggest cheerleaders, Well,
wouldn't you say, not to cut you off, but wouldn't you say in certain settings, that's where a lot of anger comes from, or miscommunication comes from, just for the fact that people feel they're not being heard, right?
Oh, definitely. Or you're trying to shush them, or you're trying to just not give them the time to get whatever is off their chest and acknowledge exactly what they brought up to you. Don't go back to this is how we do it. This the handbook.
Yeah.
You're just trying to
that's
the
the
tornado
word.
going faster.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yep. Keep the tornado going faster. You already know how that is.
But yeah, so that's kind of how I ended up falling into this career. I held different positions.
Yeah, and we're gonna because I'm definitely gonna paint because the way I want to shape the show is I do want to talk about your nonprofit journey before the event planning. And then I want to talk about the event planning specifically, kind of paint the picture of what your company does and what makes you unique. Then kind of go through some questions that people usually have for event planning, so you can kind of do the do's and don'ts and write the true narrative. But there's two questions before we get into your post college journey. I did want to ask these questions, and I don't think I've ever asked these questions. So if it gets too personal, let me know. But there's two questions that on my mind is one: what was it like going into an elite institution? Of being a woman of color in that space. Also, too, what was it like growing up in a single parent household when you had no dad? Because we always in society, we paint the picture of these boys, these boys with no father figures. But I know this is a podcast to learn, but I would like you to share, because I don't think I've never on this podcast asked that question or had that narrative. So plus I just never in society the women that grow up with no dad. So can you just share?
So I think it's interesting. Okay, I'll go to the second one first because I think it's interesting. I never felt. So seeing my mother really go after her goals and her dreams, and literally when she started her tutoring service, she had less than $1,000 in the bank. She started in her house. She was at
MIT and had a corporate career. Oh.
Yeah, well, life.
Yeah.
Life is real, and I think that was part of her journey with like my father and getting divorced from him. So she divorced him when I was 1. Mm-hmm. And, even after that, I think they had a little back and forth before she decided that was completely done. Mm-hmm. But, I think her success and what she was doing, if you're a partner with the wrong person, that person can wipe out all of that. Mm-hmm. You can be making good money, and that partner can be at home just, living. But I think seeing my mother so strong, and not strong in like, oh, she had battles, but seeing her take care of her business and people really respecting her, and even the fact like all the little boys in the neighborhood would want to come by the house and hang out, not because of me really, but because my mom was so nice. She would cook. The house felt like love. She wanted to hear what was going on. She would help you with your homework or whatever. I never felt like, oh, I needed a dad here. Oh, maybe because I was talking to my sister. I have a half-sister in Virginia. She's 10 years older than me. And I was like, one time, our father, he was like staying with with us or whatever. I think it was one of the points that they were trying to see would it work again. And I remember like going to my mom and like asking her like, so when is he leaving? Like
What?
like I'm ready for him to roll out. So like I never had this like feeling or this desire or yearning of like I need this dad or this dad figure. I felt pretty like secure in self or whatever. But going back to the first question, what was it like as a person of color going to one of these elite schools? I think like there's two things of that. Like as a Black woman, this was the first time I was in one of these spaces where I saw other Black students who were uber affluent, because we had students who were like coming from all over the world, and some of them were like coming from different African countries, but their fathers were like chiefs and like they were super affluent, you know, and they didn't even identify with like the struggle or whatever, or even trying to communicate like this is our Black experience or this is what's going on. I don't think it would have really made too much sense to them because that wasn't what they experienced. And even like when we talked like in our political science classes about some of the classisms in their home country, like, oh no, that's not really there, because again, that wasn't their experience. But then on the flip side, I think as a Black student at the institution, you start seeing the cracks in it. You know, you see the idealism, and you see like our slogan is women who will run the world, women who will run for president, women who will, you know, change racism or whatever it is, you fill in the blank. And you see that like our connections help a lot of the women of non-color really a lot quicker than they help us. And it's not that we're taking different classes or we're taking, you know, whatever. It's just, and perhaps it is with building the network and learning how to build your network while you're at these colleges, so that you're not behind the horse trying to build it once you graduate. But I think that being a person of color, you see the areas that the school hasn't thought about you and how your experience would be different, you know. Or like I became personally independent when I was in college, so I ended up having to put myself through college. Wellesley is not a college historically for the working class, but really for people who are trying to put themselves through. And just to give reference, the idea is that you will spend 44 to 55 hours a week on your coursework outside of classroom time.
50 hours a week?
Right.
What kind of 50 hours a week? What?
Yeah.
What? It's even 50 hours in a week?
You know, so like it's only like at least 11 hours a week per subject that you take on.
What kind of subjects y'all teaching?
Outside of the classroom.
You just said you're taking Chinese? That's what? That's crazy.
Yeah, so, you know, there's things to that, like, that I think kind of, now I know that I want to fight for when I'm able to. And when I was at Wellesley, I ran for college government president on the platform of reducing stress and promoting mental health, because I think that's another thing that is a problem there. And a lot of the Ivy League schools, which is why you have student suicides, which we don't talk about enough, but we've all seen them or witnessed it. And it's because we don't talk about the stresses the students have, why they feel like things are so out of control, and finding real solutions so that we aren't creating these pitfalls for these young brains and these young people to fall into, you know, that we've seen happen again and again and again. So I think that's something that was also triggered by me being a Black student and not having some of the support that I needed and that I wanted, and I didn't want to keep complaining about it.
Yeah, that's great. You know, thank you for sharing. And I don't want to go into it now, but I always on my back of my head, I always think, especially when I was growing up, like, man, we have all these. Our nation is becoming a very, very diverse nation in the U.S. Like, I mean, I don't know if white is definitely not a majority anymore, is it? or is it?
No, or it's not going to be in
Yeah,
a
it's not
few
gonna be pretty
years.
soon. However,
Yeah.
as you know, we have majority of these the high positions in the government and the state offices or whatnot are not people that look like the demographic that it's serving. So
Right.
I've
Right.
always kind of not laughed at it, but like, yo, I get y'all deep over there at Harvard and Wellesley and all the stuff. Y'all learning stuff to do international relations with people and whatnot. But it's like, so the elite, they get to rule over like everybody else, and you don't even look like what we're doing. So I've always
Right.
kind of had that conflict because I know you need smart and affluent people in those positions that making it, but then it always goes to show, and you see it in public school system, you see it all
Yep.
around where
Yep.
it's like, okay, so what we do in public education? Well, I went to Wells. I can't comprehend why this student won't come to class on time, why the student will skip school, or why the student is
Yeah.
doing it. I can't comprehend it, but I'm making those decisions. So why do you think like? And this is and you could be brief
No,
on it,
I
but
think this is a really big issue. Like, I'm sorry, I'll let you
no,
finish
no,
your
no,
question.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I think this is a really big issue because on one hand, I think that schools like Wellesley, they're important because they do a really good job at teaching students how to analyze really dense and really heavy topics, statistics, create the research, digest it, and then present it in written forms that people can understand. A lot of times, like research, books, lectures, and stuff like that. And you need that. And I don't think a lot of times most programs teach us a deep enough analysis, right? Which is why you get a lot of representatives that we might have who you might be a little bit embarrassed, like, wow, like even if you didn't know a trivia fact, because I'm not a trivia person, you didn't you couldn't reason through that and like, so for instance, I won't say the congressman name we had, but we had a congressman in Georgia who made a comment like, if everybody in Cuba went to one side of the island, it would flip over. If everybody went to like the north side, the whole island would flip over. And you said this on like Congress floor on C-SPAN. We're watching this as you represent us, and who you couldn't think that through. But I think on the other hand,
It sounds like something I would say, so I can't laugh too hard.
no, no, but it's just kind of like, but on the other hand, I think that like some of the conclusions and biases that we bring in the elite do not get highlighted enough. So I've worked with Harvard and Wellesley professors and researchers to do stuff, and I think that like we like to really highlight the people that we're researching their problems. Like, okay, we're gonna go into the black community, and little black boys have all these things, and they're prone to X, Y, and Z. But we don't define ourselves as the researchers enough, and where our positionalities are. So, like you were saying before, you might have someone who's coming from these backgrounds, and they go to the classroom. They're like, I don't know why, Tom won't come to class today. Well, his mom has 3 jobs. He has a little sister he has to take to school before he comes here. He has to try to get her ready and hair done and all that. And then he comes to school late because he's really taking on those roles too. But because they're so far out of that experience and they haven't had enough self-awareness, they miss their bias, and I think that's a problem. And I've talked to some people, especially up here in Detroit, about Teach for America people coming, and I know they heavily pull from
Oh
schools
my
like
God,
Wellesley,
yeah.
like Harvard,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Mm-hmm.
put them into schools that they deem struggling or almost unable to, like, without these saviors coming in, well, they wouldn't be able to turn it around. But the thing is that a lot of people from these backgrounds have never been any. I've been in public school, not, oh, I've been in public school, but like I've actually been there, and I've had students who were truant students or who dealt with these problems. And so I can sympathize in a way that perhaps some of my peers wouldn't be able to, even though I personally did not go through some of those struggles. And, perhaps Teach for America isn't doing enough training to teach them how to be empathetic or how to see other circumstances that might be happening, versus just going to oh, they just don't like school, oh, they just trying to be too cool, versus there could be real life stuff that's going on, you know.
Nah, you hit on the head, and I really am. I want to jump to the event planner, but I don't want to do your story disservice to kind of
But
curate
it's
the
all important. Yeah, it
yeah.
all goes together.
And because I do want to jump because we talked about it yesterday, but if you could speak real briefly about your first job out of college, and then that moment that like, whoa, hold up, this is real. Like this whole, I know I'm deep, I know I'm smart, I know I'm a good worker, and when it just didn't pan out, because I think you said something deep, and I know a lot of people that's listening right now can identify when you're doing everything you think you're supposed to be doing, you're checking all your dot, you're crossing all your T's, and then doors get closed in your freaking face, and you're like, "What? Hold up, whoa! This is
Right.
American Dream. I'm doing it. Like, what in the world?" So, talk us through your first job out of college, lesson learned, and then kind of when that first shift or when that first shock to your life happened.
Yeah, so I actually like this story. It sounds a little sad at first, but this is another full circle moment and like another testament. Like if you stay in a race long enough, you can have a win, and the first like setback doesn't have to be your final setback. So like leaving Wellesley, I had already gone through this thing of like right before I was graduating, I had three potential jobs that like I was either the second person or third person to like potentially get that job, and I didn't get it. And like they were all international jobs that I would have a whole nother like life right now if I had gotten them. So I was really sad afterwards, like, whoa, I just graduated, and now I'm realizing that all that work, I had turned down Columbia, I had turned down George Washington for grad school, and now I don't even have these jobs. And life was like come to me like, am I going to have to? I'm literally thinking, am I going to have to go into a shelter, right?
Oh, what?
And
Whoa!
literally,
What?
no, literally. And so I'm praying, and this is another point where the quote that I used before, like I could do all things through Christ who strengthens me, really comes in, and I'm like, God, I'm about to go on these interviews all around. I reached out to as many places that seemed like, you know, they were going to offer me a position. I was like, I'm going to do an in-person interview. I'm flying there, and I used my money. I flew to Connecticut, went to Boston, Rhode Island, Texas, and Georgia was my last stop. And I said, I'm from Atlanta. If anything, I could stay with people, and I'll figure it out. And that Friday I was supposed to land. I was supposed to go to Atlanta. The Thursday, United Way called me about an application I had submitted months ago, and they said, "Hey, can you come in on Monday for a interview?" And I'm like looking up to like, you know, God, like thank you, because it's only literally the Sunday before I decided I'm just gonna go out here and fly around, and I'm gonna get me a job. And this was not even something that was on my list. And so Monday I go to have my interview. By Tuesday they gave me the job, and I think Wednesday or Thursday I bought a car so that I could get to work and everything. And I started working there, doing fundraising. And in my first month I raised $80,000,
Wow.
which is a lot of money, but at the time I was so bright-eyed, but she told that I didn't get how big of a deal it was, you know, and how much notice I was getting, outside of the fact that I was being requested all over Georgia to speak at different government like offices and like UPS and all that kind of stuff. And like the JC Penney's that I did their United Way employee fundraising campaign, ours raised the second most money in all of the U.S. during
Wow.
the campaign, like all out of all the JC Penney's in the U.S., right?
Mm-hmm.
And one day I come in, I knew that the young woman who was right above me, like she just got out of college too, maybe a year or two before me, and her job wasn't like an uber secure job, which at that point I didn't have any real understanding of job security. I just felt like you get the job, you work it, you keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't get that, like, as I was making all these waves, that I guess, like, she wasn't taking too kindly to it. And at nighttime, she was talking to her supervisor. I don't even know what she said about me, to be honest. And the next thing I knew, I was called in, and they told me that I was let go. And mind you,
How long was this after you started?
just a few months.
Good
So,
God.
yeah, so I came in, and mind you, I also had way more cases. I had 115 accounts, and I kept having more accounts, but I had way more than any other person in my position, and I was by far the youngest. And I came in that day, and I had my Excel spreadsheet with all my different accounts, the ones that are in green, the ones that are in yellow, and color coded, and how much I raised, and all the information. And so, like, when I tell you I was dumbfounded, I never been fired from anything, but also I was excelling. So this idea was just so like foreign, like just I couldn't even conceive of it. And I left there just crushed, to be honest. And like, why me, God? And to fast forward, and so also Georgia's a right to work state, so they don't have to. And they told me they didn't have to tell me why they were letting me go, right? And again, that crushed me because I'm a fighter, so I wanted to fight. I wanted to because I love United Way, right? I love what they do. I love what they stand for, and I love their leader and stuff like that. But again, making it full circle, and the fact that like you don't give up. So I know we'll come back to like my business and everything and all of that, but a few years later, and having my business, I had an opportunity to come back and pitch to United Way my services, and that has like a good ending, and they really did like it. And so, but hopefully, if things continue in the right direction, then this summer we'll start our official partnership where we'll be doing like an engagement strategy and helping them with some of their events, Lord willing. But that's just testament of keep going in your craft and what you want to do, and don't let one person deter you, and don't let one person, like you were talking about before, determine if that bridge is always going to be burned. Other people have been like, oh, this is such a bad thing. Why would you ever go back? Why would you ever go and pitch yourself and go straight to the CEO of this organization that raises over $80 million a year, and go straight to him like, yeah, you need me now, and so again, it's just being passionate about what you do and continue to hone in your craft and work at it. But that was devastating.
And then after that is when you made your pivot to event planning?
After that, I went to work with a company called, I don't even know I should say the name, but it's a company only because they're so private that, like I told you, when you type in their name, it's only a members page, and that's for a reason.
Or it's like one of the malls where you go in and ain't no freaking tags on the shoes. I'm like, that's the kind of mall I know I don't need to be in. I'm looking at, I went to Lenox Mall my first time. No, what's the other mall outside of Lenox? What's the other one?
Phipps Plaza, that's the one.
I went there when my first internship. I was going to stores. I was like, what's wrong with it? Ain't no tags on this stuff. Like, and then like the dude was looking at me funny. Wearing suits.
Shopping with the stars,
No, when the customer associate is wearing a suit, that's a show. Yeah. That's you got. That's
like I got a Ferragamo suit on.
Yeah, and I'm working. Are you selling me stuff? Then that means I'm in the wrong spot. I need to go to the Macy's where they got on Vans or something like that. That's what my budget code says. But let me not speak that life. I mean, but still, that's funny. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So the company, what they did is they had over 800 C-suite executives. So like the CEO of Target, Coach, Ralph Lauren, Starbucks, all these things, and they would have their C-suite executives. So we had groups for each one. We had a CEO group, a CFO, chief financial officers, chief marketing officers. We had a global one, all these kind of things, and each group would have 2 conferences a year, one in America, one internationally. And then if you were traveling to another country, we would try to see could we connect you to a member out there, and then we would have like a crazy dinner for you that we would spend like $3,000 on the meal. Now, mind you, membership to this starts at like I think $40,000 a year and goes up to $60,000 just for basically 2 conferences. Working, and so we would have like speakers like Desmond Tutu, P. Diddy, Hillary Clinton before the election, just kind of a lot of high profile people to like navigate these conversations, because if you're the CEO of Apple, who do you talk to about innovation? Like,
Yeah.
you need to be in a room with other people who are on that level. And so working with them, it taught me a lot about, because I had done embassy events in DC and stuff like that before, and that taught me a lot. And I'd done major nonprofit events, but this was a whole nother level of like, we have cashmere shawls just in case someone gets cold, and and like, we're sitting like Hermes like scarves and stuff just because it's your wife's birthday and like things like that. And so it showed me like another level of guest experience, pulling this chair out as soon as someone leaves, so that you don't have that empty spot, or you don't have that in the pictures and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
And I use that on every type of event that I do. How are we branding? What can we edit? What do people see? What's their experience from the moment that they come in? And what are we telling them? And what's our brand at the end of the day? What do they walk away with thinking about the organization or company that I'm doing the event for? But again, with that, it was another test, because that one, they had a work culture that really promoted hazing, and specifically hazing Black women that came through. And because the company was so private that most people who worked there were the executives' nieces and nephews, or the kids that grew up in the neighborhood, or, things like that. And so a lot of them were kind of like we were talking about before, like they didn't work through college. They came out and they got this really huge paying job, and their parents still kind of paid for their apartments. And so them hazing, as the executives called what they were doing to me, they didn't care about the fact that it affected my job or affected my mental health, or, even my personal, like, confidence at that point. It was just fun to them, and it didn't have any consequence, But again, we'll talk about this later on. I use those experiences in creating events that speak to the experiences that as Black people we might have working in predominantly white institutions where we don't have the people advocating for us. Because I took a lot of notes on this is what's happening, this is how I created the solution, this was the result, I dated it, and then people, the people who should have handled the HR or whatever, the managers, they just wouldn't read it, and they would say, you're just being hazed and stuff. So, it got to a point where I left, and I had to do a lot of deep meditation, because I'm like, God, what's going on? I'm going back to this, like, I'm doing what I think is right. I went to the school, I wasn't crazy there. I worked throughout the school. I had a lot of stress. I advocated for good things where I could. I'm working hard at these places. People like me, but I'm going through these challenges,
Mm-hmm.
And then to the point that I had to leave, which again, like as someone who I've always grew up working, and I love to work, that was really hard for me. And over time, and really spending a lot of time in nature and meditating on the word, I started getting the idea of my business, and like everything you've always done has been around events, has been around building communities, has been around business. I did my first 5-course dinner when I was like 8 or 9 years old. I cooked it. My mom looked over my shoulder to make sure like I didn't mess up a recipe, but like I've always had this proclivity of bringing people together around meaningful, purposeful experiences in different cool ways. And so that's kind of how I started this business. But I'm one of those people who are pushed into it versus saying, I'm so bad, I need to come out here, the ego driving me to do this,
Yeah, I think that's... I'm not going to say... I was about to say that's the best way, but I'm not going to say that because, some people, you get off on that.
It can be tough.
I think it's not easier. I got to be careful with those words. It's not easier, but it is it's a different level when you're pushed into it rather than like jumping out. It's still a huge leap but I don't know, because I think because I have a lot of experience. I've quit jobs and say, yo, I'm gonna do this, and then it's like, dang, after a year, it's like, yo, I'm still talented in it, but right now I'm not at the point of knowing my craft enough to make the money I need to survive, so I got to go back. But I think it was different when you're out there and you didn't just jump off because you think you're the ish. It's more so out of necessity and putting the pieces together. But I don't know where I was going.
And you're trying to sell people on this. That like I remember in the beginning trying to be like, I want to be an event planner. It's like, no, girl, you better be an event planner.
Yeah, you are. Like you don't. You say I'm trying to be a speaker, but can you? Right. No, you are. You're a professional speaker now. Like what you talk about?
Right. It gets to that point, and I think that's also a mental thing of like having to build that confidence. Not only that, like, yeah, I know, like, I could be a speaker. I know I could talk to these students about this, but that I am doing that, and I am fully going for it. And when I introduce myself to people, I want them to know me as this and nothing else. Not me trying to get a job if you give me a hookup, but this is what I'm doing, you know? And if you know other people who need this, refer them to me.
Yeah, and that to be real, two things on that. That takes so much confidence to really be behind something. Yeah. Like I know I was talking to my friend of mine today, he's a fellow speaker. He's doing well on the speaking circuit. He just he added a shirt to his brand, and he's not like a huge name, so it's not like people are going to be buying his shirts all crazy. And if you're listening right now, I'm not taking a shot at a huge name. He makes a lot of money speaking, but it ain't like a Morris Chestnut. Why did Morris Chestnut first thing come to my mind? Eric Thomas or something like that. Like
my hill.
So somebody just want to buy a shirt, but when he put it out on Facebook like, hey guy, I got this shirt, but I could tell he didn't really go, hey guys, I got this shirt for those that support, go ahead and buy the shirt. And there's a different mentality when you own like what you're doing, even if one or two people like it or one people buy it. But it's different than just softly doing it. I think I saw a quote the other day about, I forgot her name. She was in Precious the other year. She's big. She's not big anymore.
Yeah, Gabrielle.
And she had a quote like, and she was like, growing up, she was very insecure about her weight and all this other things. Yeah. But she said, everything changed when I said, I am beautiful. I started acting more beautiful. And everything changed. But a lot of people, even I'm on the business tip, but just on a personal tip, how you treat yourself, how you look at yourself, and don't really believe who they really are. Like, and they don't believe, I'm beautiful. Confidence don't come from affirmations of, hey, yo, you're a great event planner, or you raise $100,000. Confidence becomes when you believe you're a great event planner.
Right. And then building those skills behind it too, because the more that you go, for instance, I have bookshelves of books on events and nonprofits, strategy and engagement strategies and all that kind of stuff, and marketing. The more you really go into your craft, the more confidence you have, because you understand pitfalls. You can look at other people and say, oh, that's not quite right, or that's how I would change it. And once you start getting that confidence of being like, I could do this and I could tweak it even better, you know, that gives you another level of confidence. And another thing that I think about confidence is that it's exchange of trust. So like if I said like, you know, I have confidence in Greg that when he comes to this school, he's really going to motivate these kids and he's going to set them on the right track and path or whatever. I'm saying I have trust in you that you're going to do this, you know, and that trust comes from the way that you present yourself, your delivery, but also having that content. And so like you were saying before, yeah, he can go on there, he can say, support my cause, you know, buy the shirt if you've been listening to my speeches and you believe in it, but then going to a next step forward and knowing your purpose. Support these shirts because they represent X, Y, and Z. And all of my speeches go back to this. And so when you wear this shirt, you're really supporting, you know, students who care about the environment or whatever it is. And then you have a lot more people buying into it, buying shirts for their nieces or other children around them that they say, oh, that'd be so cute if the little boy in my neighborhood had that. It just means so much to me, that message. And then you're really promoting it versus, again, like you said before, being scared. Hey, I whipped up this shirt. Click the link.
Click the link. Like, we got shirts. Like, it is like, I feel like, yo, for y'all listening, she just dropped something big on y'all. Like, what you just said is so key. Why a lot of people are failing in their businesses, to be honest. Why, and for a large part, even certain things that I do, as far as not just getting people to buy in, listen, but get people to buy and to donate or to do whatever. You're failing because people like, and oh man, how can you articulate? Because I want you to articulate it, because I think a lot of people miss that the point you said. Okay, there's a difference in, hey, this is my shirt, than a person that's really getting behind the purpose. Not just, hey guys, like the purpose is this, not stating it, but like, how do you frame it so it's not like, hey guys, if you want your niece and nephew to feel embodied on the Black spirit and the guy that's fighting his dreams, buy the shirt. That's a whole different pitch. So
now that is something. Let me just okay. So in Detroit, we have a lot of really smart, like the Black community here, just a lot of really smart people and a lot of intellectuals, and even like I could go to like the Black farmers here who really look at like this topology or whatever and the soil and all that kind of stuff, and then they get to a point where they want to teach the kids their trait, and it becomes so formal and technical that I cringe. Like ooh, like I don't want to go to this, and like I support what you're doing, and you don't want it to be that, but you want to convey your purpose in a way that people get it. And so it goes back to understanding a lot of times your story and why you're doing X, Y, and Z, you know, and understanding why people would want to be a part of what you're doing. So if I'm a speaker and I always speak about women's empowerment and how to really get ahead, not only of the fluff stuff, but like being in the business room with men who do not typically do business with women, or with men who typically, when they see a woman applying for a job with them, they automatically think that she should be their receptionist or admin, you know. And if I'm going deep into that, then I should know how I'm different from other people, and I should be able to communicate that easy and quickly. So or even going to like my events, we create enchanting, engaging, well-executed events with high returns. That's how we're different. It enchants people. As soon as you come in, you're like, wow, I'm meant to be here. It engages you. It's well executed, so you never say, oh, they should have done that, or I went to registration table and they didn't even know how to register me, like, or sign me in or whatever. And then we have high returns. On average, our events are 4 to 6 times higher our event returns than when they use their own teams or when they use other event planners. And that's because we take the business strategy. But if I just went out there and I said, hire me because I do events, and maybe you have an affinity to buy Black or whatever, that's not enough. That's not enough. You know, I can't say, oh, just because I went to this great school, I'm a smart Black girl, you should. No. I have to be able to articulate exactly what makes me different and my purpose, you know, but that takes time too. Keep pitching yourself, and you start saying, no, this is really what I stand for. Or you start realizing, wait, that wasn't specific enough. I could be even more specific next time I introduce myself to someone, you know, or a little more clear. And I'm not just a speaker, because like you can say I'm a speaker, but who do you speak to? If someone just told me they're a speaker and I do all these conferences and summits, I would have no idea which summit I should hire them for, even if I had a good amount of money and a budget, because you didn't tell me anything like an academic speaker, a policy speaker, you know, speaker for students, a keynote speaker. Like what? You speak to musicians?
Yeah, nah. You're right where I need you right now in this show. And to kind of to pivot slightly, I did want to get into a question, because this question, when everybody thinks of event planners, there's two areas of people. There's some people that say, if I do an event, I know I don't live and breathe an event, so I'm gonna hire somebody, outsource it, and do it all. Yeah. Whatever the budget is, I know it's necessary.
Right.
There's another camp of people, event planner. What do they do? Like, I get it, but I can do it myself. Eventbrite is there. I can create an Eventbrite, create a description, have some photos up. I can get my cousins to volunteer.
I get my auntie,
I get my cousin to volunteer.
You know, she threw that fish fry together last year, real good.
And this is, I mean, I'll be honest, it's not even, oh, this is me. For a lot of stuff, to be honest, I'm like, yo, shoot. Especially if you're an entrepreneur that's got it out the mud and it had success, sometimes you like, hold up. and then it's like, well, how much should I pay them? What? Because you know industry standards on everything else, but it's like, hold up, what do you know if it's a good offer? What do you know if it's bad? How do you know if it's a good event planner? You say 401 investment, like how do I know? So I want to ask some questions for those out there that are thinking about event planning and everything else. So the question is, at what point should you consider and not consider having an event planner? That's like the first question.
Okay, if you're doing something that you know is just social, like I'm doing a small baby shower or something, perhaps you don't need to hire an event planner, because that's something personal and you're not going to have that return. First of all, let me step back before I get there. A lot of people don't know what an event return looks like, like what are you talking about? So on one level is how it can be how much money you get back for how much money you spend on that event. So, for instance, when we talked about the event that raised a little bit over $250,000, we spent about at least $100,000 on that event. But that night alone, we raised that much, and that doesn't talk about in the future how many people are going to leave there and give at a higher rate because of that experience and because they saw that this is our caliber and this is the community of donors that we built. And let me pause again because people seeing the community that you built of donors, sponsors, supporters heavily motivates how much they promote what you're doing. So if you say, I want to do this thing for kids, I have my conference coming up, and then you have all these club promoters and things like that, then I'm going to look at you sideways because that's an adult industry that a lot of times have a lot of things that hurt, especially women, and these are half the kids that you're supposed to be representing, like I worked with one school and they were growing, and one of the guys said, yeah, I know a lot of people at these clubs down here and we could get a percentage of what they get at the door. That would make no sense to have money from an adult club sponsor this charter school, and so you like that. So like you have to look at the community and where you're getting the money from and all that, because it can either attract more people to you or detract. So I'm sorry, that's really important because a lot of people don't look at their guest list hard enough. And that also can affect your return on your event, because if you spend a lot of money, say we spend $100,000 on this event and we only have space for 200 people, but I know that 200 people can't spend or give more than $10,
So it's
that's $10,000.
Yeah.
And so, or they can only give $10 a month. It's just, you have to know your audience and you have to think about that. So that's part of the event return, is how much money you can get back from how much you spend. Also part of it is how much awareness. So how many articles are being written about it, how many people blog about it, how many times is it retweeted, or journalists are speaking about it, or whatever it is, or you have presentations in the offices about this event, or your sponsors are promoting it, like how much of that's happening. And counting your sponsors' networks, because like I've partnered with big corporations who've had mailing lists of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. That greatly boosts the awareness from the year before when you only had 1,000 people because they were created by that specific nonprofit. Your event return can also come from long-term relationships with these donors or sponsors, of how much they spend throughout the year or they give, and volunteer hours really do add up a lot. I forgot how many billions of dollars it was last year. Offline, I can come back and tell you, because usually I have these statistics, but the amount of volunteer hours for nonprofits go into the billions of dollars that that Americans donate just by coming out, fouling, or working an event, or feeding the homeless. And that's money that they're saving from not having to pay someone a salary to do that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that all comes from the event and the experiences a lot of times that they get. Or we came out in this team building thing with my corporation, and I loved your program so much, I'm going to come back and do it on my own. So all of those are some ways that you can have a return on your event, where there is boosting your the loyalty people have to your company and your brand, how much you're spending, and the way people think of it. And one last thing I'll say about that is like Red Bull. They're really good at creating a identity through events. What kind of events would you think Red Bull doing or supporting?
Basketball, dirt bikes,
Yep.
RTV, motor
Yep.
vehicles, extreme
Yep.
sports,
Yep.
Spartan runs.
Yep. The things that they toss you in the lake on a tube, kind of stuff. All that like backyard, down home, mud fun, kind of thing. And that was very, very specific. Just like Sprite, what do you associate them with?
DJs, rap
Yep.
battles,
The dunking
LeBron,
contest.
yeah, dunks,
Hip hop, like
urban, Drake.
Yep. And they put their logos on these events, specific events, or Red Bull will always come out and sponsor urban things, but or not even things that aren't urban, that are like in the rural areas, so that you're associating these good times and these experiences with their brand. And I'm trying to teach nonprofits how to do the similar thing with their mission, though. So when people come out to these events, they're associating you with, if you're girl empowerment, that you really are girls empowerment, and you're not just having all females of non-color on all the panels, that you have a diverse group, because a woman of non-color cannot really talk to my experience as a Black woman going through corporate America or going through the nonprofit world that does not have a large percentage of Black women, even though our education level, we know all the statistics of, hashtag Black Girl Magic, but it's not really being represented in the professional field. So you might have great tips on how to be a better professional, but you might not speak to all the challenges that I'm going to deal with specifically.
Nah, you hit it on the head. And does your company do, because I definitely want to hone in, because I know our audience, some of them are in the nonprofit space, but a lot of them are like solopreneurs, or they're starting businesses, or they're in those kind of lanes. So do you have advice? And I got questions for it, but do you do for-profit events? Not like, for-profit events, like say like mixers and summits and stuff like that are not specifically for donors, but more so ticketed events and whatnot. And also too, as we to kind of put a filter on the dialogue for this, because I know I can already tell you have situations for different events, but for those people that don't have huge budgets, and that's the second question. What type of budgets should we expect for event planners? And you can give us the low, the mid, and like for the regular, because I know there's people on. I just want to know in general what typical event planning, what kind of budgets look like, as far as just paying for the service, not as far as what. And then also too, you pay for the service. Do they get a budget? Like, I don't know how that even works.
Yeah. So typically, so I do work with for-profits too. That's the first thing. And if they're smaller, I'll probably help them more on a consultancy base of like helping them create, this is your plan for your event. These are the details that you need to brand yourself, to reach these markers of this will be good and worthwhile for you. And I'll help connect them to different people that I know, or I can help them with looking over like invitations, which a lot of times can like kill the event. So for instance, in Atlanta, notoriously, have you been to Atlanta?
Have I been to? Of course I've been to Atlanta. What?
Okay, sorry. So we're notoriously known for having flyers with half-naked girls on the front.
That's everywhere.
Well, that's probably everywhere. But with this, you're really alienating half of your population, right? Of like saying basically this party is not about you. This is about the guys, or these are about the women who really do identify as this chick on the front. And that's not a lot of women. You know, even if you feel good that night, a lot of times you don't identify as that girl on the front, you know? And so having someone to really help, because also with that, you're sending messages of what you think about your female audience, you know, and what you think about them coming to your event and how much you care about them, you know. And so having an event planner or someone who has an eye can really help you in this. And then going to the next question that you had, a lot of times companies will know this is how much money we have. And you look at your marketing, a lot of times it's like, this year we have 25% of our budget's going to be towards marketing. And out of marketing, we want to do these type of events. And your cost really does depend on the size of the event, what kind of event you're doing, and again, your guests. Because if I'm having an event for C-suite executives and it's a reception, my wine has to be a lot better. The hors d'oeuvres that I have has to be a lot better. The music that I have has to be a lot better. Then I'm going to have an event for young professionals who really are just eager to meet new people, and they probably don't care how good the wine is, you know. If anything,
Yeah, shoot, they got
might
drinks.
be a little tipsy,
Be good,
you know. But then it's not like, and so that affects your budget. So again, knowing who you are targeting is really important, and so that you can strategize around that, and knowing that getting event sponsors and partners help with your costs, so that you don't have to do everything out of pocket and you don't have to put all the burden on you. You know, I'm doing events up here where I'm partnering with Afro farmers, so that, like the black farmers up here, so that we get wholesale food, but also it's farm to table and it's the best ingredients. That's something that I care about. You know, you might have someone who do flyers and banners or whatever, and them being able to have their logo on your stuff, they might want to donate some of that, or t-shirts to you, and that saves you money. But price low to high would be 20% of your event budget would go to event planner, but you have to think of event planner at that level as being a production manager. You have a lot of contracts, you have the venue, you have your event teams, you have audio, you have visual, you have lighting, you have your caterers, you have your rental companies, you have your event insurance, you have your signage, you got valet, you have so many different teams that you're vetting. You have security that you're vetting, you're creating timelines for and diagrams for. You want that person to be able to handle it, and you want to pay them right. You don't want to skim with your event manager or your event planner, because they're the person who's being a production manager for all of this. You rather save money on the individual pieces versus the person who's being the conductor. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where people mess up a lot. And then my final thing is that I would not go to that auntie that you know is good at throwing that great party city party, because social events are completely different from corporate events and nonprofit events. And that's something that I see as a problem, especially with a lot of young guys, because they're used to doing like promoting parties in college and stuff like that. So they feel like, yeah, I could pack a place. That's nothing. But then they miss all the cues that people are looking at when they look at your event. Where's your banner? What's your logo on? What are your flyers that I take away? Where are your cards, your brochures? Where are the people to sign me up? You know, is your color scheme really being used throughout the place? Are you just taking all of my money and using it for yourself? Because people feel they get very upset about that, and they feel like kind of betrayed if, like, for instance, I got invited to an event up here that the tickets are $150 or $250, but the invite didn't tell me the food, the drink, or anything about the experience I'm about to have, and you want me to spend almost $300 for this? And I don't know if you're going to feed me. I don't know if it's going to be a sit-down thing, who's going to be in the room. And so literally what I did was I went on LinkedIn and I added everybody that it showed that was going to be the speaker. Because I'm like, oh, well, if there's someone I want to talk to, I'm going to set up a coffee date. You don't want that to be the person's reaction. You want people to be incentivized to actually go to your event and not just see, oh, is this someone I should know? And go around it, you know? Because my thing is like, what are you doing with this $250? And if you have 10 of us, or if you have 100 of us who come to this thing, you know, you can't just play it. Events are not just a gambling thing where you can just see how much money you can get out of people and you don't give anything back to them. You know, we're buying into it because we want an experience. You know, it's like Beyonce knows what she's doing. She didn't go on and have that formation tour and just sat down the entire time on a stool and told you to pay this outrageous amount of money. She gave you everything and more, and then afterwards you're like, yeah, that was a good $5,000 well spent. You know?
Yeah, whatever you did, and if you could give some more practical advice for those that want to do events, but say if their budget's not crazy, their passion just starting off point, but of course they don't have corporate backing yet. They're trying to get sponsorships, they're trying to do all this other stuff. But like, what do you think the core things they need to focus on before they say, hey, I need to go get $30,000 in sponsorship. Oh, hey, I need to get 400 people at $300, whatever. And they got a good purpose. However, they're just kind of lost in some of the practical things that they should do. So can you speak to that individual out there that wants to do right, but don't got the budget just yet? Like, what's some practical things they can do that they can help them?
Yeah, okay. So in the beginning, as you probably know, you're really excited about this new event. You're like, yo, I'm about to have this culture change conference. We about to take over. You want to write down at that point every single thing you're feeling, everything that's getting you hyped about it. You know, when I walk in, there's going to be posters of kids that have been affected by, you know, my message and a story beside, you know, what they're doing. You want, however it looks in your head, write it out, or whatever sells you on this thing that no other conference is like this. Write that down, because those are going to be the selling points that you bring other partners in on this experience or the event. And it's also going to be guides to make sure that the event day actually looks like what you want it. You know? And then my second thing would be, do not rush it. Do not feel like, especially if you haven't done a lot of events, like I can honestly say, yeah, next month I could do a new mixer or a new dinner that I didn't have the materials for or whatever. But I know all the things that's needed for that and all the partnerships and ways that I can negotiate the stuff. But like, if you haven't done it before, give yourself plenty of time. And a lot of events really take 6 to 12 months to plan out, at least. And the even bigger ones, so even bigger productions, take 2 years. And it's because you're looking at your marketing, you're looking at the messaging, and you want to make sure that everything speaks to who you are. And it goes back to like really spending a lot of time in knowing your purpose. And so like I was talking to one guy and I'm like, okay, you have this great thing that you want to do this mixer around or whatever. I could see people coming. And I said, what happens when people give you money? What are you going to do with that money? Well, I just wanted people to know about my thing. But you have to be prepared for the next step. When you give me money, we're going to instill these systems, or we're going to get more teachers to do this, or we're going to invest it this way so that people feel confident in giving to you or growing your business. Because even if you have a for-profit, if it's a really good cause and it's a need being filled, people will donate money or they will send clients your way, but you have to be able to handle it and you have to know what's going to be next with that. What's the next stage? Or like, I did this great event and like we talked a lot about, it was an event series for Black business owners in Detroit, and it went on for months, and we talked about what would be the next step. And I guess it wasn't quite clear to one of the people presenting exactly what was going to be the next step. So when she ended this phenomenal presentation we had, like people were moved by it, she just kind of rambled about We'll see how things go next, where it leads. Keep your ears open, and it was just demoralizing.
Keep your ears open. Keep your ears to the streets.
Right, like what? Like you just got us hyped up about these black women, all the stuff they're doing, how y'all been having the sisterhood for all these months, and now you just kind of like that makes people lose confidence. And then especially if you are, especially if you're a minority doing this or doing a thing, and you have stereotypes against you, you want to know what the stereotypes are and combat that. So if it's that we do things and we don't have long-term system for that, if you're going to bring that up, make sure you have a long-term system that you're addressing. Don't fall into the traps that people already have, or like, it being a community event. I really dislike when people call it a community event, because that means like janky, podunk, we don't got any money. It's gonna be in the church basement, but we're not even gonna like spruce up the church basement. It automatically lower your standards versus like this is an event where it's people in our community and we're really sharing great thoughts, and we're or activities, and it's great food and it's visually appealing. Like community event it doesn't give you that idea. It just
So, and also, because I can have questions for days that people can relate to, but for sake of time, what are some foundational? Because you have a library. What are some foundational books that everybody that's even going to even think about doing an event within the next 10 years? What are some foundational books, tools, websites, resources outside of just making a call to you and your website and everything else?
Yeah, well, I have to give a quick plug because you asked.
Yeah.
I have an events podcast, Rielle's Events Podcast, where we talk about just different aspects of your events. And it's for people who perhaps right now are not in a place to hire me, or they want to see would hiring a consultant be worth it, or things that they can kind of improve that are easy. But also for women, there's a book that I picked up, and it's an older book. And it's called, I think, like The Women's Selling Game or something like that. And it's by Carol Hyatt. And it talks about negotiating as a woman and kind of creating your own professional presentation in the world, and like how do you handle men. And I think that's really important, because events planning goes back to a lot of relationship building and contract negotiations, and you have to be very aware again of how men see women and the roles that they are typically used to seeing women in, even though it's 2017 and whatnot. You'll be surprised at like how much sexism you deal with in this space, and that's something that I speak to a lot about, especially in Atlanta, because of some of the events that we have down there. I think that's really important of a book. Anything by Judy Allen is really great to read. She she did like thousands of huge events for like Disney and everything else, and so she gives a lot of great advice and whatnot. But my thing is reach out to somebody who does events, and a lot of us are pretty flexible. But having someone who can help you, because this is a business, whether you're for profit or not for profit, you're doing your events for a business purpose strategically. And if I was going to create a new app, I would ask someone for help, because I'm not a technological person like that. And I think there's a point where you have to understand your limitations too, and ask for help, because it can be very overwhelming. And I've seen people who are like solo entrepreneurs, or who were starting a nonprofit on their own, and they got so overwhelmed by like the 4th or 5th month into the event planning that they start turning on all the people who are really there to help. And they're like, you haven't done enough. You're not really here for me.
You're not a real one.
Yeah, like I'm here day and night working on this thing. But it's like, if you had a planner, they could probably pave the way for you, and they could help you with like, this is what you need to do right now. And it's digestible, and you stay on track, and you never are overwhelmed. and you can delegate, and they make you delegate to other people, which is also really hard for a lot of people because you're like, this is my baby, and there's never been an event like this ever
Yeah, it's
in the
always
world.
like that.
And so no one can help me. And so, like, I think that's another thing that you have to get over. And you just have to ask for help. I'm not going to do the maintenance on my own car. Even if I look at a lot of YouTube videos, I'm going to ask for help so I don't mess it up because it's too valuable to me.
Man, you're speaking real right now, and it's very practical because at the end of the day, people. When I need an oil change, I know dang well I can't go under there and change the oil. I don't know where the oil cap is. I know that's not my gift. If a radiator busts, I'm not going to go in there and fix it. I have to go to a mechanic. There's no way. But a lot of times when we're with something we want to do, like make an app or all this other stuff, we go to YouTube, we go to all the stuff, we start doing it ourselves. But you are not an app maker. Not to say you shouldn't try.
But how long does it take you?
Yeah.
Even if you get to your first thing, you're like, it took me months on this. It still kind of don't look right. Versus someone who's done a lot of them, they understand, okay, this color palette looks right, or this transition is cool,
because
or whatever.
Society is sexed up the word grind. Because people think grind to me, I don't say I'm grinding no more, because grinding, there's a lot of stuff I've grinded on doing that was dumb. I could have asked somebody that, like, when I first dropped out of college, there was stupid the reason why, because I didn't ask nobody for advice on partnerships or how to work with stuff. I just spent $20,000 of my own money on an event that flopped because I was a party promoter. So it could have been avoided.
I've seen that a lot of times. I have a friend who went through like full inheritance of like $100,000 on events. They were great, had a lot of great people. Long term, did not create a return for him. No branding. Hired great artists to come out. That's another big thing I would talk to people about. Like, don't just stay for a celebrity just because you like the name. You like their music. You gotta be wise.
A couple times, boy. I had a couple retweets and like, oh, I need to bring her up. Flew out at 15 people. And I'm like, bro, y'all said y'all wanted her.
Right. And you get a little quick thing, and then people leaving. All they talk about is the person you brought in. They're not talking about you and your brand and what you're doing. And unless you're a club and your thing is about having the hottest people there, you need to be at a point where you can honestly have a great event with or without that person, that celebrity.
And I hope...
then you add them.
Yep, and I hope everybody that's listening, because I know we're getting deep into event planning, but I hope whatever lane you're in, whatever profession, it just speaks to the point of, there's always somebody in your field that's deeper than you. There's always somebody deeper than you, and it just seeks to reaching out to those people that are, like, and being comfortable. And then when you reach out, be honest too. Like, okay, if you don't have nobody, I know if I reach out to X, Y, and Z, I don't got it right now. So if you just send me a link to some articles or whatnot, be grateful for that. Don't be like try to hide. Like, okay, so what's your budget? I don't know what the budget. Blah, blah. No, own it so people know how they can help. Right,
and that know your budget, because for me, I'm not one of those event planners that I will make a budget work. I did a run in Atlanta. Pat Tillman run, and outside of like what my fees would be, they spent $500 on the entire run, right? We raised $30,000 that year. Before, I think the highest they raised was $6,000. The most they had was 67 runners. That year we had over 350 runners. But the thing is, you have to be honest about your budget. We could have done a lot more with a bigger budget. But if that's not what you have, don't do that, because then the return's not going to be right. Versus now, if knowing the right budget, you can push harder on getting the right partnerships. It might be a little bit more hustle in that. Mm-hmm. But, you can make a lot of amazing stuff happen, but you have to be honest. And I've had clients that I was a little earlier in my business, having my own business, and I didn't get that this was happening. Their budgets changed, and even though they were much older than me, they were not comfortable with acknowledging the fact that they didn't have the same budget that they thought they were going to have. And so they kept projecting like everything was like all of a sudden my fault. Even like things that were like, that's fixed. Like that's not an issue. Like they would make up things just so that like to redirect, versus just saying like, hey, I don't have this amount of money. What can we do? Because your event planner or the person you're who's helping you, they have solutions, and a lot of times they have networks that at the end of the day they could probably tap into to help you.
I say it all the time, and I have to pick myself so I can believe it, because as a speaker, sometimes you say so much, you have so many messages that some days you're like, yo, look in the mirror, because it's like, yo, if you have a problem, a lot of people that need help don't realize they have a problem. The students that like be like, why you walk around, you not learning? They don't realize that they need to learn. Like, what? Oh, I need to study? What you mean? What you mean, Mr.? Like, seriously, they know. They're like, what I need to do? Like, I come to class every day. I should get an A. What you like? What if you don't need?
Or what is studying like? Because I've had to teach students how to take notes, and it's not silly. These are things that someone has to sit down with you and be like, if that point wasn't obvious to you, if that point you didn't think of yourself, write that thing down, because you won't know it later, and that's what you study.
Oh, that's easy. That's simple. If it's not obvious to you, then write it down. Right. I like that. That's very simple. Nobody ever told me that. No, because a lot of people think stuff is obvious, and but it ain't that deep. Like, people that's probably listening right now, they're like, yo, an event, it's obvious that you should be doing this and stuff. And it's like, hold up. And when I'm giving a speech, it's like, yo, there's certain things like temperature, blah, blah, blah. And now it's obvious to me now, but when I first started, it wasn't obvious. And I know in 5 years, it's going to be like, yo, gee, dang, bingo, it's obvious. But a lot of people, they're just starting their career, and they think stuff is, they're not noticing stuff. And it's just, I don't know, we can go there for a while. So I know we have there's still a lot to talk about on that, but we'll save that for another time, maybe a webinar, something of that nature. But everybody that's listening, they know, and you have talked around and talked to us so much that they know that first of all, they need an event done, they need to go contact you. Second and foremost, too, they know that there's always in your craft, in your space, and whatever you're trying to do, at minimum, even if you can't afford it, whatever, at minimum, reach out to those that are in the lane that know what they're talking about, not the fluff stuff. Because I know some event planners that could not articulate half as much as you just did in 20 minutes to me. So it speaks volumes to that. But before we get to the culture change round, I want to ask, what do you want your lasting legacy to be? Because, I mean, I know you're doing event planning now, but as our conversation, when the first half of our conversation was all sociology, a lot of other stuff.
But all my events are around social cause. Even when they're for businesses, they all have a purpose. And I think, like, for me, this could be we can come back another time and talk again about more things that I personally went through, because through Wellesley, personally, I went through a lot of really big stuff and traumas and whatnot. And we talked about me being sheltered, and me seeing those things taught me how vulnerable I am as a person, and how vulnerable I am as a Black woman, and how little bit of resources there really are for us, even when you quote unquote done everything right and try to make everything that they tell you as a Black person you should do to get this brighter future they promise you or whatever. And so all my events, when it comes, have really deep content, and that speaks to the social issues that people are dealing with. So, like, going back, I talked to girls empowerment a lot. Okay, we have classes on negotiating, because a lot of times we don't teach women how to negotiate for their contracts or salaries or bids, or even how to do a strong pitch or a quick pitch. Like, I sent you the message on LinkedIn. You could say, oh, it sounds a little pretentious or whatever. It was direct to the point, and it lets you know what I want to talk about, why I thought I would be good, and why I relate to your audience and your show, versus me sending you 8 paragraphs, and at the end, you really don't know any of those things.
Yeah, and I did not say it sounded pretentious.
But it could.
I'm about to say, I just laughed at I just laughed at the, like, this is an Ivy League school. And I was like, Wellesley, in my head, I was like, that is not an Ivy League school. What school is she talking about? Like, at first I was like, yo, it's a scammer. Like, LinkedIn got a lot of different kind of people. But I was like, who is this talking about Wellesley? I never heard of this. Clinton. And I looked at the thing and I was like, hold on, I feel dumb now. But
no. But that's a skill that I had to learn. Or years ago when I was doing internships and stuff like that, someone was like, you're very ambitious, and I like that about you. And I thought that was like the dirtiest word you say to me as a woman, because I thought like ambitious women were like women who didn't want children and didn't want families and only cared about work and like the cartoon type of thing, where they're just bossy. We'll use that word. They're just really bossy and they don't get along with anybody. But over time, I realized ambitious is just having really big dreams and going for it and learning new strategies on improving what you're doing so you can hit those dreams. But again, that's something that I had to be taught because as a woman, things that might have been good for men aren't always taught that they're good for us, like qualities to have. But if I have a girl empowerment thing, I want to talk about these things. I want to teach them specifically, these are techniques you can use. These are books you should read or people you should follow or, careers you can do. And so all these social things that we talked about before really end up coming up at every event that I do. Or if I'm doing a Mother's Day thing, I'm thinking about, are we just looking at traditional mother-daughters? Are we looking at foster care families? Are we looking at adopted family, children? Are we looking at surrogates? Like, how are we defining this? And that goes back to the social aspect and, like, how do we frame conversations and who are we leaving out of these conversations, and stuff like that.
Yeah. So as we jump into, and I think you answered the question though. What do you want your I think that
legacy.
I think that kind of summed it up, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to be known for I use my passion for people and for bringing people together and through events. I think that's what I want people to know me for. At the end of the day, I want to be able to go to a level where I'm known throughout the country for doing different things, but also on an international scale of doing. There are a lot of international summits that we don't ever hear about, but there's someone who plans those things, where they're bringing different major NGOs around the world together, or you have conferences for farmers from around the world that they bring together. Or you have the UN does a lot of summits and stuff. And I would like to be that person that they call to, or that firm that they call upon to create really important events that impact people no matter what level in society or where they're at. I think that would be the legacy that I'd want.
Yeah.
And that event is not just fluff. It's not just flowers. Like that's a part of it, but it's not just something that you just push off to the side as frivolous.
You hit on the head. I think that's why the essence of why I feel the need to even do an event in my space, because I've been to, not to call events out, but I've been to a lot of Black empowerment events and whatnot, which is cool. But I felt like it was like a lot of pretentious people talking about their successes, but not really giving real blueprints on what it really was. It was like it was a lot of the hard work, grit, and they had some good talks, but what is the practical stuff? Because, unfortunately in our society, sometimes you don't want to give people the right blueprint to get where you are. It's like, hold up.
Right.
Am I really going to tell you, okay, get a podcast, here's the exact steps? Not to say we're at the top of the top, but we reached a certain pinnacle of success in this lane. I'm not going to give you exact steps I did. I'm just going to
And we have to stop that. That's the worst, and that's so common, but that's the worst thing ever.
I hate that too, because the reason why in our space, like the blogging space, the podcast space, all these white men, Michael Hyatt, John Lee Dumas, Lewis Howe, they all gave me the blueprint. So I'm like, that's why I do what I do, because I want to be the guy to give it all away. Even now, there's certain people in certain spaces that I give away, and they've even surpassed me, not in the podcast space, and other things I gave them advice to, but I said that's what it's supposed to be. That's what because that's what.
But won't they put you on? Even if they surpassed you in the podcast space, they will get to a platform where they go back and say, Greg, you still doing this? I have an opportunity for you. Here you go. Because that opens so many doors, and then they can see I could connect you with these people, and you're part of their network and their sphere.
The cat's close. So, I've never. And not just to put it in a Black culture, but it is proliferant that a lot of people are closing doors. And I'm like, hold up, you supposed to be opening the door. We closing as many doors as we can so that we can go into another house and leave everybody else in the same one. So I was just sick and tired of, or the opposite, where you go to conferences and all it is mixers. It's all it is like people getting drunk
right.
and having fun. I'm not gonna put no people on blast, no conference on blast. I'm like, yo, what is this? Like, we go here, we take cool pictures on rooftops, we around black people successful, but we ain't solving no real issues, or we not even
We're not strategizing.
No.
We're not implementing any of this stuff. Yeah, I'm with you, and that's what we're fighting. And I'm so excited for your conference. I'm so excited for us to continue the conversation, and for me to help you in some way.
I got to,
At least brainstorming and thinking about it,
Because I'm looking at like Chris Gullibow's conference and a lot of other conferences, and even though I haven't been to all of them, but at least their marketing, they look like they really having fun and really doing good, like really working on stuff. Like, so why, like, what this all the stuff, like, there's all these TED conferences, all this other stuff. It look very innovative, cool, forward thinking.
Yeah,
and then all of our type of conferences sometimes is to look like we just brunch. All we do is brunch, chicken and waffle brunch. We got we just like, no. Where's our space that we're being innovative, cool, forward thinking? Why is it just we just cool people in suits taking pictures with drinks?
That's exactly. So I'm starting this group called Incognegro, and it's a humorous group of Black professionals who are tired of hiding within corporate America or predominantly white spaces. And you probably know the term Incognegro. It's usually a term we use for Black people we feel like are assimilating too much into white culture, right? And it's funny, but on the other hand, like, it's funny because we've used this. Really, this is a term that's actively used or whatever. But on the other hand, when we say that about each other, we fail to realize that when you're in multicultural spaces, you have to assimilate on some point, on some level, because your biggest thing is to get through that school or get through this job or whatever it is. And also, when we do that, we don't provide resources to those Black professionals that our colleagues get. So we don't get the mentorship that they get, that we don't get the networking, or, perhaps we leave this company, but our network is looking at other companies that could hire us, We end up having to go through the whole system of finding a new job from square one versus having people to help us. So I created this group so that we would meet monthly on Sundays at this really great space, and we would have a 5-course meal. Each meal is paired with great wine. We have farm-to-table dinners from Black farmers, wine from Black wine shops here. And each meal we talk about a different experience or issue that we deal with, whether it's microaggressions, what is it like being a Black woman in a professional sphere. And we could come together and actually talk about it. We have different activities to help us work through it. But I partnered with the Detroit Mental Health Authority so we can have Black counselors there, so that it really is helpful and we're not just rehearsing scripts that we said before, and we're not leaving angry, like, because of the things that happen. Like, I could talk about the United Way things that happened beforehand, but I worked through those things, and I'm to the point where I could go back and try to work with them again and have this really great fresh start. But I had a network around me and a team that helped me through that, and so that's something that I want to create. And I think that you can do that through events. So I just love the last point that you made.
Yeah, no, I'm all on all aboard, and hopefully, because I still think, and I think before we're about to get the coach change around, but I also think that too, the reason why the podcast, not even an event, the podcast, because there's so much Black talent in all these spaces that are really smart and really progressive, really doing great things in the industry, but don't really have a lot of name recognition. So when you go to conferences, you don't see the not, and it's crazy because the new wave of like tech entrepreneurs, Black places, like they earn their shine. I like it, but it's like if you look at a roster and you say, hold up, I don't know this name. I didn't see this name on Forbes 30. Are they relevant? But then honestly, to be real, I know some casters on Forbes 30 that it's like they position and angle themselves there But I know some cats is
yeah.
not there. This really millionaires doing it. So that's neither here nor that's a
Right.
conversation for another day. Because that's
Yeah,
the
the
first time
politics
I
of
realized.
that.
Yeah, that's the first time I realized. Hold up, you a 430 you really ain't about. Hold up, let me
Right.
not go. Let me not. But I'm like, but so I just hopefully. And we can talk offline about it. But I know I want to be one of those guys that finds the realness of that of cats. This really tactical and giving away blueprints that are not. You might
Yes.
not know them off the top. They might not be Zims, and no disrespect because Zim is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But they are like they can tell you step by step on how to really do it.
Exactly, and you need that, and that's something that we need because, like, at Wellesley, I realized how much they're being taught at this level, and even like how to network or how do you write these emails, how do you present yourself, the way that you promote yourself to other people. You know, these are all strategies that are being passed down and used, and we're not learning it. And so the ones of us that are making it, we kind of talked yesterday about some of our friends. We have to go back and talk to everybody else. Like, I see what you're doing. I like it, but this is a way you could tweak it. I'm not judging you. I'm not criticizing you, but I know where you want to go, or I see you being even bigger than this. Here's a way to do it, and then helping them do that, not just shaming them for being not to that level yet, or the standards that you have.
No, that's huge. That's huge. That's huge. So the last round, the most exciting
Mm-hmm.
round, the culture change round, where I ask 5 rapid fire questions and you give me 5 rapid fire answers. Are you ready?
Oh goodness, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
ready.
What's the best piece of advice that you have never received?
The best piece of advice I've never received. Um, at some point, you have to define yourself independent of everybody else. So at some point, I went through so much and I was holding on to, like, this is what this family member thinks of me, or this is what this ex boyfriend said about me. And it got to a point where I have to define who Rielle is for Rielle, and then, and let that be. And it can't be because I'm fighting against the narrative someone else put on me, or this is what someone else thinks of me. Like, it's not even about that anymore. It's about just Rielle and what I think about who I want to be and stuff. So,
If you could add one habit and take away one habit, what would it be?
take away one habit would be I apologize. And that's one thing I hate for women to do. Like, do not apologize. Do not apologize for being awesome. Do not apologize for intimidating people. Do not apologize for intimidating men, especially when you know that you are actually good at what you're doing and you put a lot of time and effort in being good at that. And when I say apologize, it could be apologizing for just being there. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the way. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't even know what I'm sorry about. Like, and that's something that I do sometimes is before I think, I say I'm sorry. But now I'm getting to the point that I'm like, I'm not sorry. And it's not even like a
I ain't
Beyonce,
sorry.
I ain't sorry. But it's just like, it's nothing to be sorry about. And then because I also realize it makes you seem always scared, mousy. And there's been times where people have been like, you know, you make me feel like I'm bullying you. Like, you make me feel like I'm scaring you. And that's not the case. So, like, I think that's one habit I would change. And one habit that I would add would be to go out more. I used to socialize a lot more than I do now. And I think, yeah, half of it's like, I go to an event, I'm like, this is so not worth it. Not worth how much money I spent to get here. But also, I think that, like, going out is really important. It's really important when you're in college. It's really important when you're young, and you're finding yourself, and you need to go to different experiences and see, like, this is what I like, and really push that envelope and not go to the same type of event or the same type of thing, yeah. So I think that would be the thing I would add, is to be a little less of a hermit.
I get you. What is your favorite book and why?
Oh, geez. I I read a lot, and then I'm thinking of my favorite book. If I had to say, like, the book that has been most impactful has probably, or a book that I quote a lot, was been The New Jim Crow.
Oh yeah, I love that book.
I read that book a lot of times. I think that book, I like I I like books. I like research that talks about from the beginning of a problem and goes through time and how we've either changed or not changed our idea of that one problem. And I think that book does a really great job of how we've enslaved Black people specifically, or have done things to keep them in a specific area level and not let them have their rights, and that never really changed throughout history. And as someone who thinks that way, I think the way of, like, timelines. Like, my mind is always thinking of everything as a timeline. So the way that book is written is very appealing to me.
Nah, I love it. I love it. I love it. What is your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is instability. My biggest fear is going back to a point where, like, no money, kind of homeless, figuring out, like, just pushing. And I think because that's something that has been real for me, and it's something that I never expected for myself, and learning that the poverty cycle is so strong and so real, especially for us minorities and Black women, again, especially Black women. I think that's my biggest fear, is that I would get to a point or go back to a place where I'm not stable, And although I'm working hard and I'm doing everything I can, that it's just not adding up. I think that's really scary to me.
That's deep. That's deep. That's deep. And the last
question.
I
want to have a house. I want, I'm not a crazy, like, over the top person. I don't, like, ball out on clothes, and, you see I'm natural or whatever. So I don't rock a lot of weaves anymore. So that's money I don't spend on, that. But for me, just having one place I call home, and I could be at peace there, that's really important.
I love that. I love that. And the last question, before we do our culture change question, our culminating question, like a thesis, is if you were the president of the United States, what's the first thing you would do?
See, when I listen to this and I hear everybody else give their feedback, I'm like, oh, this is what I would say. Oh, they wrong for that. That's too easy. Now it's my turn. If I was a president of the United States, the first thing I would do is to really look at the sex trafficking that's happening in America, that's, again, specifically happening to Black women, that's happening in Atlanta, that we're seeing in Maryland and all over the U.S. and all over the world, that would be something that I relook at. And again, I would go back to, like, the new Jim Crow type of looking at, and going back to when we had laws of saying Black women couldn't be raped, and all the histories of how many of our families in our, I'm sorry, I'm about to get deep. I'm trying to pull it back. But how many of our families' stories are affected by these rapes and are affected by taking the bodies of Black women. Even one of the, my great grandmother, whatever, she was a product of her doctor raping her mother, and we highlight certain features that she had or attributes that she had, but that's a very serious origin story, but also is very common in our American history. And so today, as we're taking these women, or as we're pushing them into these sex worlds and these sex industries and being sex slaves, and we're not talking about the systems that we have around it, of not paying them appropriately for their work, not providing them with the right types of jobs, or even if we're all Black people, of having Black men and first and only seeing them as assistants and not seeing them as having full potential to be the financial officers or the project managers, or having bigger, wider skills, not just servicing your needs and whatnot. that's something that we need to talk about. And if I was president, that would be something that I would really bring to the forefront, because this is half our population, you know, and we can't just keep turning a blind eye and just think these girls are bad or these girls are running away. And even if that was the case, what is so bad that is making hundreds and thousands of young girls just run away from that and never come back? You know, what have you experienced at 13, 15 years old that would do that? And what are they experiencing that are pushing them into these young boys' arms or these men's arms that are persuading them into these lives and stuff like that? I think that's really important. I mean, of course, you go into education, but if you're not here to be educated, hey, you know.
Yeah, nah. If you're not, there's always bigger questions that, unfortunately, it's hard for the right people to tackle. That's the key.
Right.
It's bigger
right.
questions, but the right people. And then, of course, if you analytical is like, okay, then what determines the right people? That's a conversation for another day. But I mean, there's a lot of big questions in schools, but it's like who's answering them? And then the people that are answering them, they're not the people that really necessarily would be the right people too. And it just
who's answering them? Because like, even when I was back in 6th grade, I was a goofy kid. I didn't really know anything really about sex. You know, like I have a hypersexual family, but I didn't really get much outside of like, you know, you make the circle one finger and the other finger go in now, like, ooh, they doing it kind of thing. Like that's what I got. But then I entered 6th grade, and a lot of the girls were already sexually active. And when I would talk to them, it would be like these 16-year-old boys, the 18-year-old boys, the grown men, or they were already being touched by people in their family.
Wow.
And no one talked about it. And even to this day, when I talk to men and who have children and who have daughters, and I'm talking to them about not only the need to talk to their children, their girls, but also their sons about it, they say these things have always existed, even when I was young, in the 60s or 70s or 80s or whatever, as if that's an excuse about it. You know, I don't think that there's an appropriate person to talk about this. I think that we all need to talk about it. And I think that we need to be very upset and passionate about this stuff, because not only are these young women losing their innocence, but they're losing their mental health and their stability, because these things are being forced into them and are happening to them that they cannot explain. And now they have to deal with this level of fear and insecurity of not knowing who to trust, or, you know, if this darkness is going to be something that's going to take another part of them. And they don't even have the words to articulate this. And we're too scared to talk about it, but we can rap about it. We can have all this stuff on our reality shows. We can blog about it. We can talk about, you know, upgrading our bodies and doing all these things. We can be so vulgar with it, but we can't talk about the realness of our children or of the young girls who are in college who are being taken advantage by 40, 50-year-old men because they see their vulnerability, because they see they are young and they don't know anything yet, and they have had decades to practice on these lines. Mm-hmm. You know, like, this is something that we have to be upset about, be passionate about, but it doesn't just, as a community, we all on every level have to talk about it. We have to be like Twitter comment mad, like Facebook post upset, you know, about this, so that people higher up care enough and that we're holding them accountable. And we can't just be like shocked or shrug like, oh, it's always been this way, or you just have fast girls. Because if you put it as them being fast, are you born fast? Is this just, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. You know, and it goes back to the good girl thing that we talked about earlier, and that, again, these women are going to have psychological problems for the rest of their life unless we talk about the fact that this is not their problem. Like, this is not the problem that it's not their fault, you know? Yeah, no. And it's not a problem that they need to solve on their own, or that they should have to struggle with. And that's why, like, I like shows like Greenleaf, because for the first time, we are talking about it, and we are talking about the psychological effect and what happens when the family and stuff. Like, and again, like, you can create a lot of events around this, and this is what gets you passionate and whatnot. And I'm sorry, I just kind of took you there.
This is the.
But it's conversations we need to have, and like, if we all grown up to rap about it, talk about it, you know, put it on Instagram, that we need to be old enough to talk about the dark side of it and what we're also promoting and adding to and perpetuating within the Black community, but also within the greater American community and culture and stuff, you know?
Nah, yeah, you hit on the head. I think it's a reality. The small piece that I can add, not add, because that you said it enough. It's just that the fact that I think a lot of times, especially us educated Black folk, we tend to laugh, or not laugh, but we tend to say, man, what in the world, like these rappers, they talk about nothing, man, whatever, but in the way we treat women, the way we do things, we the same. We're cut from the same cloth. It's like, oh, they ain't talking for nothing. They just blah blah blah. But like, oh, the way we act, the conversation we have, it's the same thing. There's no disconnect. So it's easy, because it's the easy thing to do it, and it's the easy way to not hold yourself accountable. And then there's just so much. There's a lot with that.
And my last thing, because I like to leave with solutions, not just like get people riled up. My solution, and especially because I talk to a lot of men about this, and like men around your age and everything like that, my solution is for y'all to talk to each other. And when you have a guy that come around and be like, yo, man, I just met this shorty, and within that a night or two, I was able to do X, Y, and Z, and be like, what about that makes you proud? You know, like, oh, so you just got somebody else and open their feelings. Now she's hopeful that you're going to be something. Like, you need to challenge it versus being like, man, that's so cool, you know, or like, because again, like you said, it's easy. It's something that you're used to. You don't want to really shame your bro or whatever. You don't want to seem uncool, but the more you play along with it, the more he's going to do, and he's going to try to get a even wilder story that shocks you next time. Mm-hmm. You know, man, it was her, and then it was her best friend the next day. Like, whoa, really? Like, and you become so desensitized that you forget these are real people that you're doing this stuff to, and these women are going to carry it with them. They're going to ask, is this me? Is it about me? How could this happen to me? What should I've done to verse? And again, something I learned that someone should have told me: you define yourself based off of you and not other people. But that's something that, as women, we learn a lot later on. And a lot of this heartache could be avoided if our guys were talking to each other and not playing into, this is cool, or I don't want to talk, so I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to say, man, you wild. Nah, that's not enough. No. You got to nip that. Because, like, you know, when you have a little sister or a good friend that you call your sister, you're like, nah, don't mess with him. You know what you're saying. You know that you're saying some parts of his personality, the way he treats women, is sketchy, and he doesn't fully respect them, you know. But the fact that you know this should be something that urges you to try to change that with that friend when he's bringing those things up, versus like trying to just tell the girl not to like this person. Mm-hmm. Well, you help your man evolve, like, so he gonna be 40 years old still acting this way, versus people saying, come on now, we not 15 years old. Yeah. Come on.
Nah, you, man, wow. That was some. Wow, that's deep. That's deep. This is an event planner, guys. This is most event planners. You're not getting a 2-hour podcast out of that. Ain't enough material. You're gonna be hard. You're gonna be fighting for 45. So I mean, wow. This has been.
But thank you for having me on here. Thank you for.
No doubt. I think, you kind of answered. This is the first time in history you answered the last question. The last question I asked is like, what would you change about the Black culture specifically? And I think you kind of you hit it all. You hit everything. You hit life.
Everything
on that last thing. So I don't want to beat a horse. But
the dead horse.
Yeah, but it's been very, very enlightening to say the least.
Thank you.
And I just pray that our audience can not only get the practical stuff, but get the context behind it, and take away something that can encourage them to be better, and if anything, because there's steps before you become better, just be more knowledgeable, because you can't be better until you're knowledgeable. So let me say, just be knowledgeable. So from the heart of Minority Trailblazer Nation and myself, man, I appreciate you, one, for being so flexible and adjusting today, and just giving us well over 2 hours of your time.
Well, stuff you can cut out and mix or whatever.
No, I'm not. I don't cut out. That's one thing. It's like I'm a big proponent of realness, and plus I didn't come into this with a crazy ego, so I don't care if somebody like, oh, this is a 2-hour podcast, I'm not listening. Oh, don't listen then. Don't get it. Like, it ain't gonna be. People like, yo, G, have you ever thought about doing 30 minutes or an hour? No, I haven't, and I won't, because it just this is like, I'm just having a conversation. This is uplifting to me, and hopefully in the thousands of others. And if not, just don't listen to that. Listen to another one that suits you. So it just I have no preconceived. I haven't reached out to sponsors. Sponsors reached out to me, but I'm like, okay. But it's about the culture of conversation. I really think every second. That's why I don't take out something, because I've always think that, what if the minute that I took out, what if the thing that I say is irrelevant to me may have been relevant to that person to help them take their career to the next level.
Yeah.
Not to say my podcast should be 10 hours, but it's like, I'm not, it ain't that deep.
Yeah.
I'm not losing sleep.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
But yeah, so Minority Trailblazer Nation, you already know what it is. We always close it out like this. I need you to do one thing. Actually, no, two things. First, leave a review. It don't make no sense. We got 157. We should be at 200 by now. So I'm going to be on y'all. I'm going to incentivize it in some fashion, because I guess everybody loves to get incentivized.